I still remember the sound of that thunderstorm the night he told me. The rain was smacking against the kitchen window like it had something to prove, and the whole house smelled like lemon pledge and heartbreak. 25 years of marriage, and he dropped it on me in the middle of cleaning up after dinner. No warning, no fight. Just, Tasha, I can't do this anymore. At first I laughed. Thought he was just tired or trying to start one of those deep, late-night talks. But when he wouldn't meet my eyes, I knew it wasn't exhaustion. It was guilt. He stood there, hands in his pockets like a teenager caught sneaking out, and said the words that cracked me open. I met someone. My whole body went cold. You know that kind of silence where the fridge hum becomes the loudest thing in the room? That was it. The storm outside had nothing on the one that just hit my chest. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a plate. I just stared at the man I'd built my life around. The man who'd seen me give birth twice, who held me when my mama passed. And I realized I didn't recognize him anymore. His face was familiar, but his eyes, those eyes were gone. If you've ever been blindsided like that, you know. There's a specific kind of pain that feels like drowning while standing still. If you're new here, stay tuned, 'cause what happened next turned my whole world upside down. And honestly, you might even say I should thank him for leaving. See, this isn't just a story about heartbreak. It's about what happens when a woman who gave everything finally decides she's done shrinking for love. I'm telling it now, because I wish somebody had told me that night, that your world doesn't end when a man walks out. It just starts spinning in a new direction. That kitchen was small, but the silence inside it felt endless. My hands were still damp from washing dishes, my wedding ring glinting under the fluorescent light. I caught a glimpse of myself in the dark window, eyes swollen, lip trembling, and I whispered, "Who even am I without him?" Outside, thunder rolled over the city. We lived in the suburbs, right outside Atlanta, in one of those cul-de-sacs where every house looked the same, but you could always tell who was fighting inside by the light staying on too late. Ours would be the one glowing at midnight that night. He didn't pack a bag. Said he'd come back for his things later. I didn't ask where he was going. I already knew. My gut told me before my mouth could form the question. There was another woman, and she was the reason he couldn't look me in the eye. When the door closed behind him, it felt like 25 years evaporated into thin air. Every birthday, every anniversary, every late bill we fought over, gone. Just like that. And I stood there in my old sweatshirt, hair tied up, staring at the empty space where his car had been parked. The storm finally eased up, and I remember thinking, how dare the sky calm down when my whole world just fell apart? That night, I made myself a promise, though I didn't know it yet. I promised I'd survive this, even if I had no idea how. Because when a man leaves you after 25 years, he doesn't just take your love. He takes your routine, your rhythm, the life you thought you had figured out. But what he can't take, not really, is your fire. And that was still somewhere inside me, buried under all that pain. So I sat on that kitchen floor, knees pulled to my chest, while the clock ticked past 2 a.m., and I cried until the tears ran out. Then I just sat there, staring at the wedding photo on the wall. Me in my white dress, him in his cheap rented tux, both of us grinning like fools who thought forever was guaranteed. Forever. What a lie. By sunrise, I was empty, numb, but there was something new in the air, something fierce. It wasn't peace yet, but it was the start of it, and I didn't know it then. But that was the first night of my new life. The morning after he left, the world looked exactly the same, but nothing felt familiar anymore. The coffee pot gurgled. The news anchor on Channel 2 talked about traffic on I-285, and somewhere down the street, Mrs. Ellis was already out watering her hydrangeas like she did every morning. But inside my house, time had stopped. It's wild how 25 years can fit into one empty silence. Every photo on the wall felt like it was mocking me. Smiling versions of us frozen in moments that meant nothing now. The Bahamas trip, the kids' graduation, our 20-year anniversary dinner where he toasted forever. Forever, my ass. I made myself a cup of coffee, even though my stomach was too tight to drink it. His mug was still in the sink, the one that said, "Wawan Dad." I almost threw it away, but something in me said no. I wasn't ready to erase him yet. Not completely. We met back in college, at Clark Atlanta. He was tall, smooth, always laughing. I was the girl with the big hair and bigger dreams. We built everything together. The business, the house, the family. We came from nothing, and for a while, I was proud of how far we'd come. He used to call me his backbone. Turns out he preferred something a little more flexible. I tried to tell myself it was just a phase, that he'd come back. Men make mistakes, right? That's what everybody says. But deep down, I knew. When a man checks out emotionally, his body just takes a little longer to follow. The kids noticed first. My daughter, Jasmine, called from college, her voice sharp. "Mom, are you okay? You sound weird." I lied, said I was fine. Because how do you tell your children that the man who taught them about love just gave up on it? That afternoon, I drove to my sister's house. Shanice has always been the no-nonsense one. Loud, funny, and allergic to tears. When I walked in with puffy eyes, she just sighed and opened her arms. No questions, no judgment. "That fool really left you?" she asked, holding me tight. "Yeah," I whispered. "He met someone." She pulled back and looked me dead in the face. "Then let him have her. You'll be fine, Tasha. You always land on your feet." But I didn't feel fine. I felt like a ghost in my own skin. The days blurred together after that. I went to work, came home, cooked for one. Every night, the house echoed with memories. Laughter from the den, arguments in the hallway, the sound of his keys hitting the counter. You don't realize how much noise love makes until it's gone. Sunday came, and I forced myself to church. Pastor Reynolds was preaching about forgiveness, but I couldn't focus. Everyone kept whispering, the kind of whispers that crawl down your back. Word had gotten out. Atlanta's small like that. Secrets don't stay secrets for long. After service, Sister Hattie, who never missed a chance to gossip, patted my hand and said, "Don't you worry, baby. The Lord will send you someone better." I smiled politely, but inside I wanted to scream. I didn't want someone better. I wanted my damn life back. That night I finally went through his closet. Half his clothes were gone, the rest still hanging like ghosts of who we used to be. I found one of his old sweatshirts, the gray one I used to steal when it got cold. And I sat there on the floor just holding it. It still smelled like him, cologne and betrayal. I could have burned it, could have boxed it all up and shipped it to wherever he was playing house now. But instead, I folded it neatly and put it away. Because something told me, this story wasn't over yet. Not for him, and definitely not for me. People like to say time heals everything, but time doesn't heal what you don't face. And I wasn't ready to face it yet. I was still clinging to the idea that maybe he'd wake up, realize what he lost, and come home. But I should have known better. Because the next time I saw him, he wasn't alone. And that's when I learned her name, the woman who'd replaced me in the life I built. The first time I saw her, it was by accident. I was in the produce aisle at Publix, trying to decide between romaine and spinach, when I heard his laugh. That same easy, deep laugh that used to make my knees weak back in the day. I froze, like my body knew before my mind caught up. And then I saw him. Marcus. My husband. Well, ex-husband now, though I still hadn't gotten used to saying that word. He was standing by the apples, holding hands with a girl who couldn't have been more than 30. Maybe 32 tops. Light skin, long straight weave, nails done, everything about her polished and shiny. Like a brand new car he couldn't wait to show off. Her name was Alyssa. I know because I heard him say it, soft and sweet. "You want Gala or Honeycrisp, Alyssa?" My stomach dropped. 25 years together, and I'd never once heard him say my name like that. They looked comfortable. Too comfortable. She was laughing at everything he said, even when it wasn't funny. I watched her reach up and fix his collar, like she'd been doing it for months. Maybe she had. I ducked behind the lettuce display, heart pounding like I'd run a marathon. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped the damn bag of spinach. An older lady next to me bent down and whispered, "Baby, you okay?" I nodded, but I wasn't. Not even close. They didn't see me. Or maybe they did and just didn't care. He looked different. New haircut, new cologne, new smile. The same man, but not my man. I wanted to walk right up and slap the smugness off his face. But instead, I left my cart and walked out that store like the floor was lava. In the car, I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Tears wouldn't even come. I felt hollow, like somebody had scooped out everything soft inside me and left the shell standing. I went home, poured a glass of wine, and tried to make sense of it. What did she have that I didn't? Was it her skin? Her age? Her laugh? I looked in the mirror and saw 25 years of loyalty staring back. The lines around my eyes, the stretch marks, the small scar on my chin from when Marcus and I painted the kitchen and I slipped off the counter. Every mark told a story. Our story. And now, he was out there starting a new one with her. I wanted to hate her. I tried. But the truth? I couldn't. Because I knew exactly what Marcus was feeding her. The same sweet promises he once gave me. "I'll take care of you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." I've never felt this way before. He was a professional at making women feel special, right up until he decided they weren't anymore. My sister Shanice called that night, and I told her what happened. She let out this long, low whistle. "So that's her, huh?" "Yeah. Her name's Alyssa. Sounds like a side dish." I laughed for the first time in days. Leave it to Shanice to make me crack up in the middle of heartbreak. Then she said something I didn't expect. "Good. Now you know what you're dealing with. You can stop imagining and start moving on." Easier said than done. Because every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her youth, her glow, her easy joy. I kept comparing myself to her, even though I knew it was pointless. But deep down, I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, his leaving wasn't the curse I thought it was. Maybe it was a chance, painful as hell, but necessary, to rebuild something that was mine again. That night, I deleted his number. For real this time. No, just in case. No, what if. Just gone. Then I sat on the porch, under that thick Georgia summer night sky, cicadas humming like background music to my grief. And I breathed for the first time in weeks. He chose Alyssa. Fine. But I chose me. And I promised myself, next time I saw him I wouldn't flinch. The funny thing about heartbreak is that the world doesn't stop to let you catch your breath. The bills still show up, the sun still rises, and the coffee maker still brews for two, even when there's just one cup left to fill. Those first few weeks after I saw Marcus and Alyssa at the store felt like walking through molasses. Everything was slow, heavy, quiet. But after a while, the silence stopped feeling like punishment and started sounding like peace. I'd wake up to birds outside my window instead of his alarm going off at 5:30. I'd sit on the porch with my coffee, wrapped in my old robe, watching neighbors rush off to work. And I'd think, maybe this is what freedom sounds like. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. The first step I took back into myself came one random Tuesday morning. I was late for work, hair half done, running out the door when I realized, for the first time in years, I didn't have to text anyone. No, "Hey, you good?" No, "What do you want for dinner?" Just me. I played Beyoncé's Me, Myself, and I the whole drive and sang every word like a battle cry. At work, people tiptoed around me. "Hey, Tasha, you doing okay?" They meant well, but pity felt like salt in the wound. So I smiled, nodded, and buried myself in spreadsheets. The more I worked, the less I thought about him. But loneliness still crept in at night. That's the thing nobody tells you. You can be strong as hell all day long. But when the lights go out and the bed's cold on one side, strength feels like a cruel joke. I tried to distract myself. I I started walking every evening, earbuds in, podcasts blasting. Sometimes I'd stop at that little diner on Ponce, Miss Laverne's, the one with the sticky booths and the best peach cobbler in the city. She'd always greet me with, "Hey, sugar, what's got you out here looking so serious?" And I'd just laugh and say, trying to remember what peace tastes like. Little by little, life started to take shape again. Jasmine came home from college one weekend, bringing her laundry and her gentle worry. We stayed up late, watching old movies and eating popcorn. And at one point she said, "Mom, I'm proud of you." I asked why. "Because you didn't fall apart." I smiled. But inside I thought, "Baby, you just don't know how close I came." One night, Shanice dragged me out to a karaoke bar downtown. "You can't mope forever," she said, shoving a mic in my hand. I sang Before He Cheats by Carrie Underwood, off-key, loud, and free. By the end of the song, the whole bar was singing with me. I hadn't laughed that hard in months. It wasn't that the pain disappeared. It was that I stopped feeding it. I realized Marcus wasn't the only one who'd changed over the years. I had too. I'd just forgotten who I was without him shadowing every decision. That realization hit one Friday night when I came home to a quiet house, poured myself a glass of red wine, and danced in my kitchen. Alone. No music. Just me and the hum of the fridge, and the sound of my own laughter bouncing off the walls. I wasn't healed yet, but I was healing. The next morning, I looked around and saw a house that still had love in it. Not his, but mine. I started painting the guest room, moved furniture around, changed the curtains. It felt symbolic, like scrubbing out the ghosts. A few days later, a Facebook memory popped up. Me and Marcus at Tybee Island, smiling like fools. I hovered over the delete button but didn't press it. Instead, I captioned it. "Sometimes the hardest endings make room for the best beginnings." The comments rolled in. "Girl, you better preach. You glowing, sis. You deserve happiness." And for the first time, I believed it. Because even though my marriage was over, I wasn't. Atlanta was still humming. The world kept spinning. And for the first time in forever, I wasn't afraid to see where it was taking me next. If there's one thing I learned living in Atlanta, it's that word travels faster than Wi-Fi. By the time I walked back into church that next Sunday, everybody knew Marcus had left. The whispers hit before I even made it to my pew. You know that sound. Low enough to pretend it's not about you, but sharp enough to slice through your peace. Bless her heart. 25 years, can you imagine? He left her for that young girl from Buckhead, right? Yeah. Everybody had something to say. I held my chin up, put on my best smile, and sat right in the front row. If they were going to stare, they could at least get a good view. Pastor Reynolds talked about trials leading to transformation. I almost laughed. Because if transformation meant sitting in a church full of people who pitied me, then God and I needed to have a serious talk. After service, Deacon Harris, who hadn't spoken 2 words to me in 5 years, came up and said, "We're praying for you, Sister Tasha." I wanted to tell him to keep his prayers, and maybe pray for Marcus instead, but I just smiled and said thank you. Then came the women. Oh Lord, the women. Some were genuinely kind, dropping casseroles off like heartbreak was a stomach flu. Others were curious, waiting for the drama. Girl, I saw him at Lennox with that little thing. She looked like she still gets carded at Chili's. You better than me, 'cause I would have snatched her wig clean off. I didn't have the energy for any of it. I didn't want sympathy or revenge. I just wanted silence. But silence doesn't exist when folks think your pain is public property. At work, my coworkers were more subtle, but not by much. "Just checking on you, Tasha." Translation: "We all saw your husband's new girlfriend on Facebook." My boss, Ms. Campbell, pulled me aside one day and said, "You're doing good, honey. Just focus on yourself." That's what I did when my second husband left me. Second. I didn't even survive my first yet. I went home that night and sat on the porch again, watching the streetlights flicker on. I thought about how everyone had an opinion about what I should do next. File for divorce, get revenge, lose weight, travel, date again. But nobody asked me what I wanted. What I wanted was peace. The kind of peace that didn't depend on what Marcus did or who Alyssa was. I realized something that night. People love a comeback story, but they don't have the patience to sit with your pain while you're still broken. They want to skip to the glow-up. Well, I wasn't there yet. The next weekend, I decided to face the noise head-on. Shanice convinced me to come to her friend's birthday cookout on the south side. I almost said no, but then I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, why not? I pulled out this yellow sundress I hadn't worn since before the separation. Tight in all the right places, curls out, hoops on. When I walked in, the music stopped for a second. You could feel eyes shift. Shanice grinned. Told you, sis. You still got it. People came up, hugging me, complimenting me, pretending they didn't know the gossip. But I didn't care this time. I smiled. I danced. I laughed. For the first time in months, I felt like me again. Not Marcus's wife, not the woman he left, just Tasha. Halfway through the night, this older lady, Miss Roberta, one of Shanice's neighbors, came up to me with a cup of sweet tea and said, "Baby, don't let folks' words define you. Let your peace confuse them instead." That stuck with me, because she was right. I couldn't control what people said, but I could control how loud I let their noise get inside my head. So from then on, I stopped explaining myself. I stopped defending Marcus's choices or pretending I was fine when I wasn't. I just started living, quietly, deliberately, on my own terms. And the quieter I got, the louder my strength became. What none of them knew, not the church ladies, not the gossipers, not even Marcus, was that I was finally learning who I was without him. And that scared me a little, because for the first time in 25 years, my story didn't revolve around anyone else. It was just mine. It started one random morning, the kind that doesn't seem special until you realize it changes everything. I was brushing my teeth, same as always, when I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. Not a quick glance, a real look, the kind you avoid when you're hurting. My hair was wrapped, eyes still puffy from crying the night before, but something in my face looked different. Tired, yes, but also stronger. It had been months since Marcus left, and for the first time, I didn't see his wife. I saw a woman who'd survived something meant to break her. I leaned closer to the mirror, toothbrush still in my hand, and whispered, "You're still here." And that one sentence, quiet as it was, hit me harder than any sermon or therapy session ever could. I didn't realize how long I'd been waiting for someone to validate me, to tell me I was enough. But standing there, in my old robe, in that quiet house, I realized I didn't need to wait anymore. So I started doing little things that felt like reclaiming pieces of myself. I lit candles again, not to set the mood for someone else, but just because I liked the smell of vanilla and sandalwood. I started cooking real meals instead of just heating up leftovers. And every night, before bed, I'd write one thing I was grateful for. The first week, the list was short. Got through the day without crying. Jasmine called. Didn't check his Facebook. But by week 3, gratitude started showing up everywhere, in the quiet mornings, in the laughter with my coworkers, even in my own reflection. One day, I decided to get my hair done. Not the quick twist out I usually did at home. I mean done. I went to this salon on Auburn Avenue, owned by a woman named Keisha. The second I walked in, I smelled coconut oil and heard Fantasia blasting through the speakers. The vibe was warm and unapologetically black, like stepping into a sisterhood. Keisha looked at me in the mirror and said, "What we doing today, Queen?" I smiled. "Something new." She raised an eyebrow. New or just a trim?" New, I said, laughing. 3 hours later, I walked out of there with a short, curly cut that framed my face like it had been waiting my whole life for this moment. I couldn't stop touching it, couldn't stop smiling. It wasn't just hair, it was a declaration. That evening, I stopped by Target for some candles and new bed sheets, because if I was reinventing myself, my space needed to match. I ran into a coworker, Marissa, who said, "Girl, you look different. You glowing." I laughed and said, "It's called peace, baby." At home, I made myself dinner: salmon, roasted veggies, and a glass of wine. I put on music, lit my candles, and danced barefoot in my living room. For the first time, I wasn't performing happiness. I felt it, but healing isn't a straight line. The next day, a song came on the radio, the one Marcus used to sing off-key every Saturday while he cleaned the garage. And I broke down again, just like that. And that's okay. I learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without falling apart. That weekend, I went through my closet and packed up the things that no longer fit the woman I was becoming. The old dresses he used to compliment, the shoes he hated, even the nightgown I wore the night he left. I donated it all. When I looked in the mirror again that night, I saw someone who was learning to love herself the way she'd always loved everybody else. I saw the woman I'd lost somewhere between for better or worse, and I'm leaving. And she was breathtaking. I whispered again, "You're still here." Only this time, I said it with a smile. By the time spring rolled around, Atlanta was blooming again. Dogwoods, azaleas, all those colors that make the air feel alive. And for the first time in what felt like forever, so did I. The mornings didn't feel heavy anymore. I'd wake up to sunlight instead of sorrow. I started walking again, not just around my neighborhood, but through Piedmont Park on Saturdays. I'd grab an iced coffee from that little black-owned spot near the corner, sit by the fountain, and just watch people live. Couples jogging, kids playing, dogs chasing frisbees. It used to sting, seeing people in love, but now it just made me smile. Because I knew that kind of love wasn't gone from my life. It was just shifting. One Saturday, Shanice convinced me to join her for brunch at the Garden Room, that fancy spot everyone posts about on Instagram. I hesitated at first. The idea of sitting around Atlanta's it crowd in my late 40s. Whew. But I went anyway. I wore a white off-shoulder dress, gold hoops, and that confidence that comes from surviving what was supposed to destroy you. When I walked in, the hostess smiled and said, "You look stunning." I almost cried right there. Shanice was already sipping mimosas. "Look at you, glowing like a walking soft launch," she teased. I laughed. "Girl, please. I'm just here for the French toast." But truthfully, it did feel like a reintroduction. Like the world was meeting the new me, and I was meeting her too. Brunch turned into laughter, pictures, and plans. I started saying yes more. Yes to after-work happy hours. Yes to weekend trips with the girls. Yes to being seen again. At work, people noticed. "Tasha, you've been smiling more lately," my boss said one afternoon. I shrugged and told her, "Life's too short to stay sad forever." She smiled. "I knew you'd come back." The truth was, I wasn't back. I was someone new entirely. That same week, I downloaded a dating app, against my better judgment, and Shanice's constant dare. Just to look, I told myself. I'm not meeting nobody. But the moment I opened it, my heart raced like I was 21 again. The profiles were wild. Men holding fish, men with sunglasses in every picture, men looking for a queen. Lord. Still, it felt good to be reminded I was desirable, that men still looked, even if I wasn't ready to be looked at like that again. One evening I matched with someone, a man named David. His bio said he was 50, worked in real estate, and loved live jazz. His smile looked genuine, not forced. He sent the first message. "Hey Tasha, you've got the kind of smile that makes people want to tell the truth." I laughed out loud. Shanice, sitting next to me, snatched the phone. "Girl, he fine. You better not ghost this one." I didn't reply that night, but I thought about it. The next morning, I did something that surprised even me. I messaged back. "Hey, David. Appreciate that. Truth's rare these days." And that's how it started. No fireworks, no grand gestures, just two people having easy, grown conversations. He didn't rush me, didn't flirt too hard. Just ask questions, real ones. What makes you happy lately? What's your favorite Sunday routine? Nobody had asked me those kinds of questions in years. He told me he was divorced too, had 2 grown kids, and liked taking photos of sunsets. Said peace was more attractive than perfection. That line got me. After a week of chatting, he asked if I wanted to grab coffee. I almost said no. The thought of dating again terrified me. But then I remembered. The worst already happened. What was there to lose? So I said yes. That Sunday, we met at a cozy cafe in Inman Park. When I walked in, he was already there. Tall, warm smile, gray at the temples. When our eyes met, something inside me calmed. The conversation flowed. No awkward silences. Just stories, laughter, and that quiet sense of being understood. When we said goodbye, he didn't try to rush anything. Just smiled and said, "You've got peace in your eyes. That's rare." I drove home with the windows down, music playing, heart light. Not because of him, but because I realized I was finally ready to be open again. Not desperate, not broken, just open. And for a woman who'd once believed her story ended the night her husband left, that was nothing short of a miracle. You ever meet somebody who doesn't try to fix you? They just see you? That was David. From the outside, he didn't look like the kind of man who'd change my story. No flash, no games, just steady energy. But maybe that's exactly what I needed. Someone who didn't remind me of chaos. After that first coffee, I told myself not to get too comfortable. "It's just conversation," I said, trying to sound cool when Shanice asked for details. But every night after work, I'd find myself smiling at my phone. His texts weren't flirty. They were thoughtful. "Hope your meeting went well. Don't forget to eat lunch. What song gets you out of your mood every time?" Simple things. Real things. One Friday night, he called me. Said he was at a little jazz spot downtown. Asked if I wanted to stop by. Normally I'd say no. I was still cautious, still scared of letting someone too close. But something in his voice made me say yes. When I walked into that dim little club, the music wrapped around me like honey. The saxophone, the low hum of conversation, the smell of bourbon and lemon peel. He waved from a corner table, smile soft but sure. "You look beautiful," he said when I sat down. I rolled my eyes. "You don't even know what I looked like before this lipstick." He laughed. "Doesn't matter. You've got that kind of beauty that shows up before you do." And just like that, my guard cracked a little. We talked for hours about everything. Our kids, our favorite movies, what heartbreak taught us. I told him how I'd been married 25 years and how he left me for someone younger. I expected the look of pity I'd seen 100 times, but instead, David just nodded. "I get it," he said. "My ex walked out after 16, said she felt invisible. Took me a long time to understand how that happens, how love can die even while you're standing right in front of it." His honesty hit me in the chest. No judgment, no ego, just truth. When the band played at last, he stood, extended his hand and said, "Dance with me." My instinct said no. Too intimate, too soon. But my soul? My soul was tired of saying no to good things. So I stood. We swayed slow, not saying much, just breathing the same air. And for the first time in years, I felt safe. Not the kind of safety that comes from control, but the kind that comes from being seen and still chosen. When the night ended, he walked me to my car. The city lights bounced off his face, and I thought, God, this feels too easy. He smiled and said, "I'd like to see you again, but only if you want to." I smiled back. "Ask me next week." He laughed, nodded, and said, "Fair." The next week turned into phone calls that lasted till midnight. He told me about his son who just moved to Seattle, his daughter who's studying architecture, and how he once tried to start a food truck and failed miserably. I laughed until my cheeks hurt. Then one night, he said something that stopped me cold. "You know, Tasha, I don't see a woman who got left. I see a woman who kept standing." That line stayed with me, because that's what I'd been doing. Standing. Not waiting, not wallowing, not wishing. Just standing. By the time summer came, we were seeing each other every weekend. Farmers markets, live music in the park, late-night talks in his car. He wasn't rushing anything. No pressure, no pretending. Just presence. And somewhere between the laughter and the quiet, I realized something. I wasn't comparing him to Marcus anymore. I wasn't checking my phone to see if my ex had texted. I wasn't wondering if Alyssa was still around. I wasn't replaying that old pain on repeat. I was living in the now. David never tried to compete with my past. He just built something gentle in my present. One night, as we watched the sunset over the skyline, he said softly, "You know, peace looks good on you." I turned to him, smiled, and said, "Yeah, it finally fits." And right then, I realized, the man I almost ignored had become the proof that my heart still worked. It's wild how healing sneaks up on you. One day, you're crying on your kitchen floor, and the next, you're walking through life like you never forgot how to shine. By the time fall hit Atlanta, I was glowing. Not from makeup or new clothes, but from something deeper. The peace was showing on my skin, in my laugh, even in the way I walked. Everybody noticed. At work, one of my coworkers whispered, "Tasha got that post-divorce glow. Look at her." I laughed, but inside, I thought, it's not the divorce that made me glow. It's surviving it. I started doing things I used to postpone, the pottery class I'd always wanted to try, the weekend trips to Savannah just because, the small joys that used to feel like luxuries. David was still in the picture, but it wasn't about him. This chapter was about me. We saw each other when it felt right. No pressure. No, what are we, conversations. Just grown peace. He cheered me on quietly, showed up when I needed him, stepped back when I needed space. That alone felt revolutionary. Jasmine came home one weekend and said, "Mom, you're different, happier, softer." I smiled. I think I just stopped waiting for somebody else to make me happy. And that's when I knew I'd made it to the other side of the storm. Still, Atlanta being Atlanta, running into Marcus was only a matter of time. It happened at a gas station off Cascade Road. I was pumping gas, music blasting, curls bouncing, wearing this olive green jumpsuit that hugged all the right places. I wasn't trying to look good, but I did. Then I heard that voice behind me. "Tasha?" I froze, turned slowly, and there he was. Marcus. He looked older, not in years, but in weight. The kind of tired that doesn't come from work. It comes from regret. His shirt was wrinkled, eyes a little dull. The sparkle that used to make rooms turn had dimmed. "Well, I'll be," he said with that old half-smile. "You look good." I smiled back, polite but distant. "Thanks, you too." It was the lie of the century. He hesitated, then said, "I've been meaning to call." I raised an eyebrow. "You still got my number?" He chuckled. "Old habits." There was a long pause. He kept looking at me, like he was searching for something familiar but couldn't find it. And he was right. The woman he left wasn't standing there anymore. "How's Alyssa?" I asked, voice calm. He shifted. We're not together anymore." I nodded slowly. "I see." Silence again. The kind that says everything. I didn't gloat, didn't smirk, just smiled kindly and said, "I wish you well, Marcus." Then I got in my car and drove off with Beyoncé's energy blasting. Didn't even look back. That night, I sat on my porch with a glass of wine, letting the fall breeze brush against my skin. I thought about how, a year ago, that same man had left me shattered on that kitchen floor. And now, he couldn't even meet my eyes without seeing what he threw away. Healing had changed my reflection, but peace had changed my power. The next weekend, David and I went to a friend's art show. I wore this deep red dress that made my skin glow like bronze under candlelight. When I walked in, heads turned. And not because I was trying to make them. Confidence just moves differently when it's earned. David looked at me and said, Damn, you look happy. I smiled. I am. People kept asking who I was seeing, who I was dating, how I bounced back so quick, and I just laughed. I didn't bounce back, I said. I grew forward. But word got around. Atlanta gossip never dies. By Monday morning, one of my coworkers leaned over and said, "Girl, I heard Marcus saw you this weekend. Word is he didn't know what to do with himself." I just smiled and said, "Good. Maybe now he'll learn what peace looks like when it's not waiting for him." And that's the thing about healing. It's quiet, but it speaks volumes. By winter, I barely recognized my own reflection. Not because of new hair, new clothes, or new love, but because I had finally found me. And the woman staring back in that mirror wasn't asking, "Why did he leave me?" anymore. She was saying, "Thank God he did." The invitation didn't come to me directly. Of course it didn't. It came through the grapevine, like everything else in Atlanta. Shanice called first. "You sitting down?" she asked. I laughed. "Why? What happened?" She hesitated. "Marcus getting married again. This weekend." For a second I thought she was joking, but the silence on the line told me she wasn't. Apparently, Alyssa hadn't been the last stop on his love tour. There was someone new, a woman named Tina. Real estate agent, no kids. Spiritual but not religious. The type who posts quotes about energy and alignment but forgets to pay her bills on time. I sat there quiet, the phone pressed to my ear, trying to decide how I felt. Angry? Jealous? Hurt? But the truth was, I didn't feel much at all. That surprised me. A year earlier, the thought of him loving someone else again would have crushed me. But now, it just sounded like another chapter in a book I'd already finished reading. Still, hearing the words, Marcus's wedding, hit somewhere deep. Not because I wanted him, but because weddings remind you of everything you thought would last forever. Shanice broke the silence. "You good?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Yeah, sis, I really am." "You sure? 'Cause we can slash some tires and pray about it later." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. "No, ma'am. I'm retired from chaos." We hung up, and I sat there staring out the window. The day of his wedding, I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I didn't even scroll through social media trying to see pictures. I just went on with my day. But something told me the universe wasn't done with me and Marcus yet. Around 6 p.m., I was at Miss Laverne's diner, having my usual catfish platter and sweet tea, when I saw a familiar face walk in. It was one of Marcus's old friends, Greg, the kind of man who never could mind his business if you paid him. "Hey, Tasha," he said, loud enough for the whole diner to hear. "You look good, girl. You hear about Marcus's wedding?" I gave him a polite smile. "I did. Hope it works out better for him this time." He grinned awkwardly. "Yeah, well, let's just say the groom didn't look too happy up there." I raised an eyebrow. "What's that supposed to mean?" He leaned closer, lowering his voice like we were in some spy movie. Man looked nervous, like he was thinking about something else. Or someone else. I just sipped my tea and said, "Ain't my problem." But when I got home that night, his words lingered. Thinking about someone else. I shook it off, turned on some old school R&B and lit a candle. I told myself it didn't matter. But deep down I wondered, did he really regret it? Or was he just chasing peace in all the wrong places again? A few days later, Jasmine came home for a visit. We were folding laundry, talking about her job, when she said, "You know Dad got married, right?" I nodded. "I heard." She looked at me carefully. "How you feel about that?" I smiled. "Baby, I'm just glad it's not me up there pretending." She laughed, but I could tell she was studying me. "You really don't care anymore, huh?" "Not about that. I care about me now." That night, David called. "How's your week been?" "Interesting," I said, chuckling. "My ex just got married." He paused for a second. "And how do you feel?" I thought about it. "Free." He said softly, "That's the right answer." We ended up talking for hours, about second chances, about what love looks like when it's quiet and grown and steady. He didn't try to compete with Marcus's memory. He didn't have to. Later that week, I ran into another familiar face, one of Marcus's cousins, at the farmer's market. She hugged me like she'd seen a ghost. Girl, he looked so lost at that reception. Like he was smiling for pictures but dying inside. I didn't say anything, just nodded and kept walking. It hit me then. I didn't need to witness his unhappiness. I didn't need revenge, karma, or closure. Life had already handled all that for me. Because the woman he married that weekend, she was about to meet the version of Marcus I'd already survived. And the woman I was becoming, she had better things to do. I went home, poured a glass of wine, and toasted myself. To peace, I whispered. And for the first time since my marriage ended, I realized something simple but powerful. The best revenge is never revenge at all. It's peace that doesn't require an audience. It was about 6 months after his wedding when I saw that name pop up on my phone again. Marcus. I almost dropped my coffee. The text was simple. Hey Tasha, hope you've been good. I stared at it for a full minute before laughing out loud. The kind of laugh that comes from deep disbelief. After all that, the heartbreak, the new wife, the silence, this was what he led with. I didn't answer. Not at first. But the messages kept coming. Just wanted to check in. Heard Jasmine got a promotion. You must be proud. Would be nice to catch up sometime. Catch up. Like we were old classmates. I finally texted back. Everything that needed to be said got said a long time ago. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. You look happy, Tasha. Saw you on Facebook. Guess peace looks good on you. And there it was. That little hint of regret, wrapped in a compliment. The same old Marcus charm, dressed up as reflection. I didn't take the bait. But the universe has a sense of humor, because 2 days later I ran into him in person. Again. This time at a local charity gala downtown. I'd gone with David, both of us dressed to kill. Him in a navy suit, me in an emerald green gown that made my skin look like melted bronze under the lights. We were laughing, mid-conversation, when I heard someone call my name. Tasha? I turned, and there he was, Marcus, standing by the bar, holding a drink he clearly didn't need. His eyes landed on me, then shifted to David. And I swear, I watched the smile slide right off his face. It was subtle, but I saw it. The twitch in his jaw, the way his hand gripped the glass tighter. That look of realization, the one that says, damn, she really moved on. David, being his calm self, extended a hand. Hey man, I'm David. Marcus shook it, voice flat. Marcus, her ex-husband. David didn't flinch, just smiled and said, Nice to meet you. You've got good taste. Then he turned to me, winked and said, Come on, dance floor's calling. And that was that. We danced. I laughed. The music pulsed through the room, and Marcus stood there watching, looking like he'd just realized peace wasn't something you could buy, marry, or fake. You had to earn it. Later that night, when the event ended, he cornered me near the exit. You look happy, he said quietly. I am, I replied. He nodded, hesitated. He seems decent. He is. Better than me? I tilted my head. Better for me. That shut him up real quick. He took a deep breath, eyes softening. I messed up, Tasha. I thought the grass was greener, but all I found was dirt. I sighed. Marcus, I'm not mad anymore, but I'm not waiting either. He nodded, looking down. I don't expect you to. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I believed him. I really did. But forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means letting go. Completely this time. So I looked him in the eye and said, I forgave you a long time ago. That's how I found peace. You should try it. He smiled weakly. Guess you don't need me to buy you coffee, huh? I chuckled. Not unless you own a Starbucks now. We both laughed. A little awkward, a little sad. But I walked away lighter. Outside, David was waiting by the car, leaning against the door with that calm smile that made my chest feel steady. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I said, slipping my hand into his. Just said goodbye to a ghost. He nodded. Good. You deserve to live in the present. As we drove home, I looked out the window at the Atlanta skyline, lights flickering, city humming, and thought about how far I'd come. Marcus was still chasing something he didn't understand. And me? I'd already found it, right here, in my peace, in my growth, in the quiet joy of knowing I'd made it through hell and come out soft, not bitter. He had his apology. I had my freedom. And when I lay in bed that night, David's arm draped across me. I whispered a quiet thank you, not to Marcus, but to the woman who never gave up on herself. It happened one Saturday afternoon, the kind of day that feels lazy and perfect all at once. David and I had just finished brunch at this little black-owned spot off Edgewood, sitting out on the patio laughing about nothing, sunlight hitting the table just right. The kind of easy, grown-up joy that doesn't need fireworks, just peace. I was wearing this soft cream sundress, curls out, gold hoops catching the light. David was leaning back in his chair, that smooth smile on his face, when I heard a voice I hadn't expected to ever hear again. Tasha? I looked up. Marcus. He was standing on the sidewalk, frozen mid-step like someone had hit pause on him. He had on a wrinkled polo, dark circles under his eyes, and a half-smile that didn't reach them. Beside him was a woman, his new wife, Tina. She looked uneasy, like she'd been dragged there against her will. It took him a second, but then I saw it. That flicker in his face when he saw David reach across the table, touch my hand, and make me laugh. That's when his smile disappeared. "Hey, Marcus," I said calmly, leaning back in my chair like this was any other coincidence. He tried to recover, putting on that old charm that used to melt me. "Wow, Tasha, you look great. It's been a while." I smiled politely. "It has. You two enjoying your lunch?" Tina forced a grin, clearly uncomfortable. "Yeah, we just finished up at the cafe next door." Her voice was small, tight. Marcus looked between us, his eyes landing on David. "And you are?" David stood, extended a hand with that calm confidence that could silence a room. "David, nice to finally meet you. I've heard... well, actually, I haven't heard much about you." I nearly choked trying not to laugh. Marcus didn't take the hand right away. His jaw clenched, his pride caught between wanting to act cordial and realizing the man in front of him wasn't competition. He was the upgrade. "You two together now?" he asked, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. I smiled. "We are. It's been a blessing." And it really had. Not because David replaced Marcus, but because he reminded me that love could be kind, easy, and free of confusion. Marcus looked down, nodded slowly. "Good for you," he muttered, though every muscle in his face said otherwise. Tina tugged on his arm. "Babe, let's go." He hesitated for half a second too long. Long enough for me to see that old regret flicker again. That mix of disbelief and guilt that only shows up when a man realizes he's not the one who got away. David, unbothered as ever, slid his arm around the back of my chair and said, "Take care, man." Marcus nodded again, eyes locked on me, then turned and walked off. Tina followed, but not before shooting me this small, knowing look, like she understood exactly what I'd been through, and maybe what she was heading into. As they disappeared down the street, David looked at me. "You okay?" I exhaled, then laughed softly. "Yeah, I'm great." And I was. Because that moment, that single silent exchange, gave me something closure never could. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just peace. Marcus had spent his whole life searching for happiness and new beginnings. But me? I found mine in staying still long enough to rebuild from the inside out. David and I finished our drinks, talking about nothing and everything. The breeze carried music from a street performer down the block, a soulful saxophone that made the moment feel cinematic. As we walked to the car, David slipped his hand into mine. "You handled that like a queen," he said. I smiled. "I'm done fighting battles that ended a long time ago." We drove off through downtown Atlanta, the skyline shining in the afternoon sun. For a moment, I thought about that kitchen the night Marcus told me he was leaving. The thunderstorm, the ache, the disbelief. And now here I was, laughing, loved, whole. Proof that sometimes the worst heartbreak sets you up for the best peace. By the time we got home, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You look happy. I'm glad. Take care, Tasha." I didn't reply, just deleted it, because I didn't need his words anymore. I'd already written my own ending, and it was beautiful. You ever see someone realize, right in front of you, that they messed up something they can't fix? That's what it looked like when Marcus saw me with David. His face said everything words couldn't. For years, I used to imagine that moment. What I'd say, how I'd act, whether I'd cry, cuss him out, or walk away cold. But when it finally happened, I didn't need to do any of that. My silence was loud enough. It wasn't anger I felt. It was closure. Pure, undiluted peace. That night, after we ran into him, David and I ended up at his place. Quiet music, dim lights, the kind of stillness that feels safe. I was sitting on the couch, legs tucked under me, replaying the moment in my head. David walked over, handed me a glass of wine, and said, "You're thinking too hard again." I smiled. "You noticed? Your face gives you away." I sighed, leaned back. I just keep seeing his expression, that split second before he tried to cover it up. David nodded slowly. Regret looks heavy on a man. And he was right. It was more than just guilt. It was the weight of realizing he couldn't come back even if he wanted to. That door wasn't just closed. It was bricked shut. When I finally went home that night, I stood in front of my mirror. Same spot where I used to cry months ago. And I didn't see pain anymore. I saw a woman who'd done the hardest thing you can do after betrayal. Rebuild herself from scratch. His face said everything. Mine said even more. 2 days later, I ran into someone else who'd been at that brunch spot. My coworker, Nia. She pulled me aside at work like she had breaking news. "Girl, I saw your ex at the brunch loft last weekend. He looked like he saw a ghost when he spotted you." I laughed. "Oh, he saw something all right." She grinned. "Sis, the glow-up is spiritual. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Her words stuck with me. Not out of vanity, but validation. I wasn't glowing because I wanted to be seen. I was glowing because I'd finally stopped dimming my own light. That weekend, I took Jasmine to a spa day. Steam room, facials, laughter. The kind of mother-daughter day we hadn't had in ages. At one point, she looked at me through the mist and said, "You look happy, Mama." I smiled. "I am, baby." Finally. Then she said something that hit deeper than she knew. "You know, when Dad left, I was scared you'd never smile again. But you did. Bigger than ever." I felt tears sting my eyes. Not from sadness, but pride. Because she saw it too. The healing. The becoming. Later that night, scrolling through my phone, I saw an old photo from years ago. Me and Marcus at some party, his arm around me, both of us smiling like we had forever in our pockets. I looked at it for a long time before finally deleting it. No anger, no tears, just release. Around that same time, I started getting messages from old friends, women who'd watched my journey quietly from the sidelines. "Tasha, your story gave me courage. You made me leave a situation that wasn't serving me. Thank you for reminding me that peace is possible." It hit me that my story wasn't just mine anymore. It was helping people heal in their own way. One evening, I went to church again for the first time in months. The same church that once felt like a place of whispers and pity. But this time, when I walked in, it felt different. People weren't looking at me like a victim anymore. They were smiling. Genuine, proud smiles. After service, Pastor Reynolds caught me on my way out. "Good to see you back, Sister Tasha," he said. "Good to be back, Pastor." He smiled. "You look like peace found you." I nodded. More like I found her. When I got home, I sat out on my porch with a cup of tea, that warm Georgia night wrapping around me like a hug. I thought about Marcus, about how life had a way of circling back, not to hurt you, but to show you how far you've come. His face said everything, the loss, the longing, the what-ifs. And mine said, "Thank you. Thank you for leaving. Thank you for forcing me to find myself. Thank you for reminding me that sometimes the ending isn't the tragedy. It's the rescue." As the cicadas hummed in the background, I whispered it to the night sky like a prayer. I'm free. There was a time I thought closure meant getting even. I used to imagine Marcus seeing me happy, regretting everything, maybe even begging for another chance. I thought that would fix the ache. But the truth is, revenge doesn't heal you. Peace does. It took me a long time to understand that. Peace doesn't make headlines. It doesn't post selfies or send long text messages explaining your worth. It just shows up one day, quiet and powerful, and you realize you finally don't need to prove anything to anyone. That realization came to me one morning in the simplest way. I woke up to birds chirping outside my window, the same house, the same porch, but everything felt lighter. I didn't reach for my phone, didn't scroll, just sat there, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise over my backyard. That was peace. No bitterness, no comparisons, no replaying what-ifs in my head. I'd stopped wondering what Marcus was doing or who he was with. I didn't need him to miss me, or even think of me, because peace doesn't need witnesses. It just is. A few weeks later, I ran into an old friend from church, Sister Denise, one of those women who always spoke her mind. She hugged me tight and said, "Girl, you look like joy itself. What changed?" I smiled. I stopped chasing closure and started choosing peace. She laughed. "That's the sermon right there." It was funny how everyone expected drama, but I was too busy living to deliver any. David and I were still seeing each other. Slow, steady, real. But even that wasn't the source of my peace. He was just the cherry on top of a life I'd finally built for me. One night we went to a jazz festival in Centennial Park. Music floating through the air, food trucks lined up, people laughing everywhere. He was sitting beside me, hand resting gently on my knee, when he said, "You ever think about what you'd tell the woman you were 2 years ago?" I smiled. "Yeah, I'd tell her she makes it, that her tears will one day water something beautiful." He nodded, eyes soft. "That's the kind of peace you can't buy." I thought about that later that night. He was right. Peace can't be bought, but it can be earned. It's built in the small choices you make every day. Choosing silence over arguments, growth over gossip, grace over revenge. A few days later, I saw Marcus again, purely by accident, at a grocery store of all places. Funny how life loves a full circle. He looked tired, not the kind of tired that comes from a long day, the kind that comes from living a life that doesn't fit. When he saw me, he smiled, that same old half smile. But this time, it didn't sting. He said, "Hey, Tasha, how've you been?" I smiled. At peace. That was it. That was all that needed to be said. We chatted briefly, polite, surface level, but I could tell he wanted to say more. His eyes said it all. "I messed up. You healed without me." When I walked away, it wasn't with satisfaction. It was with gratitude. Because if he hadn't left, I never would have learned to love myself this deeply. That night, I lit my favorite candle, the same vanilla one I'd been lighting since my healing started, and sat in my living room, thinking about everything I'd been through. I remembered that first night he told me he was leaving. The rain, the silence, the disbelief. I thought about all the nights I cried on the kitchen floor, wondering who I was without him. And now here I was, not just surviving, but thriving. No more tears, no more replaying the pain, just quiet joy and gratitude. Because peace didn't mean forgetting. It meant remembering without the sting. I picked up my journal, the same one where I used to write things like, "Just make it through today." This time, I wrote something new. "I'm proud of you. You chose peace over pain, grace over revenge, yourself over him." I closed the book, leaned back, and smiled. For the first time in 25 years, I wasn't defined by being somebody's wife, somebody's heartbreak, or somebody's lesson. I was just me. And that was more than enough. It's strange how peace can make your world both smaller and bigger at the same time. Smaller, because the noise fades, the gossip, the comparisons, the ache. But bigger, because suddenly there's space for joy, for laughter, for you. 2 years ago, I thought my story ended the night Marcus said, "I can't do this anymore." But that night wasn't an ending. It was a doorway. I just didn't know it yet. Now, when I look back, I don't see failure. I see a woman who walked through fire and came out softer, not burnt. Stronger, not hard. I see a woman who lost everything she thought she needed and discovered she was all she ever really had. Sometimes I sit on my porch with my coffee, watching the sun rise over Atlanta, and I smile. That same kitchen window where I once cried my heart out now reflects something different. Light, peace, a woman who made it through. Marcus doesn't cross my mind often. When he does, it's like remembering a song I used to love but don't play anymore. No bitterness, just quiet gratitude for the lessons it left behind. He taught me how easy it is to lose yourself loving somebody who doesn't love you right. But life taught me something better. How beautiful it is to find yourself again. Jasmine's thriving in her career now. She calls every Sunday, still my biggest cheerleader. Sometimes she jokes, "Mom, I hope I age like you. You got that freedom glow." I laugh and tell her, "It's not the years, baby. It's the peace. David and I, we're steady. No rush, no drama. He's a good man, thoughtful, kind, grounded. The kind who brings calm into a room instead of chaos. The kind of love that doesn't make you question your worth." One evening, we were cooking together, jazz playing low, wine glasses half full. And he said, "You know what I love most about you?" I looked up. "What?" "You don't need anyone to make you whole. You just let people add to your peace." That line hit me deep, because that's what healing had done. It turned love from a need into a choice. I choose love now. I choose laughter. I choose myself. There's a photo on my dresser, not of Marcus, not even of David, but of me, taken last month at the park. My hair wild, my smile wide, sun hitting my face. You can see it in my eyes. That woman has seen hell, and she's not afraid of the heat anymore. When I look at that picture, I don't think, "Look how far I've come." I think, "Look who I became." Because I'm not the woman who waited for apologies. I'm not the woman who begged for love. I'm the woman who found peace in her own reflection. The one who built a home inside herself so solid, no one could walk out of it again. Sometimes women ask me how I did it, how I found strength, how I let go without losing myself. And I tell them the truth. I stopped chasing closure and started honoring my peace. I stopped asking why and started thanking God for the detour. Because what felt like destruction was really direction. The day Marcus left, I thought my world ended. But really, that was the day I was reborn. In pain, in truth, in power. Now, I walk differently. I speak differently. I love differently. When I walk past that same grocery store where I once hid behind the lettuce to avoid seeing him, I don't flinch anymore. I smile. Because the woman who stood there shaking with heartbreak is gone. In her place is a woman who knows her worth, who can laugh loud, love fully, and stand tall without apology. If someone had told me then that one day I'd thank him for leaving, I would have called them crazy. But now, I understand. His leaving wasn't the curse. It was the gift that led me back to myself. So here's to every woman rebuilding from the wreckage. To every sister sitting on her kitchen floor thinking it's over. Baby, it's not over. It's just beginning. One day, you'll look in that same mirror that once reflected your pain, and you'll see what I see now. A woman who walked away different, and she's never looking back.